Cliff House is older than anyone alive. Sure, it's burned down a few times, but it keeps getting rebuilt. Always a place where the public could have a drink and a hot meal and enjoy a breathtaking view of the ocean, until now.
Every once in a while, a single building becomes far more than stone and timber. It becomes a symbol, a mirror to the past, and a witness to triumph and tragedy alike. That is what the Cliff House has come to represent along the rugged coastline of San Francisco. Standing on sheer cliffs overlooking the crashing Pacific, it has endured fires, social upheaval, and changing tastes of generations. Its history is layered and mysterious, touching upon ambition, loss, and reinvention. In this video, we are not promising ghosts or conspiracies beyond what evidence supports. Yet the title is provocative by design. We will walk you through the real story behind what really happened to the Cliff House with depth and clarity. We will examine each catastrophic fire, the rebuilding efforts, the eventual decline, and the latest chapter in which the restaurant and hotel fell silent. By the end, you will know what truly befell the Cliff House and why its myth continues to fascinate. The story of the Cliff House begins on the windswept edge of San Francisco's western shore, where land meets the restless Pacific. Long before the structure itself existed, these cliffs were silent witnesses to generations of Native Americans who once traversed their rugged trails. The view was breathtaking, but also isolating, a place of both beauty and quiet power. When the first Cliff House rose in 1863, it was a daring gesture of ambition against nature's immensity. Perched high above the crashing waves, it offered visitors a place to dine where earth seemed to surrender to sea. Simple, wooden, and intimate, it became a gathering point for travelers, a place where people could look out and feel suspended between sky and ocean. In 1881, Adolphe Sutro entered the story. A man of grand vision and equal fortune, he saw in that lonely structure not only a restaurant, but also an opportunity to redefine leisure for the growing city below. He poured resources into it, reshaping the entire area into an attraction that combined nature, architecture, and spectacle. Under his guidance, the Cliff House became more than a destination. It became an experience. Walkways wound down the cliffs, gardens bloomed against salt spray, and the hum of conversation mixed with the sound of waves colliding against stone. Visitors came from all directions, drawn by the promise of the view and the glamour of dining so close to the edge. But beneath all that charm lay constant risk. The building stood against wind and sea, its timber frame forever exposed to the elements. The threat was not just theoretical, it lingered with every flicker of a lamp and every gust that rattled its walls. That threat turned real on the night of April 7th, 1894. What began as an ordinary evening ended in chaos and flame. A fire broke out inside the building. Some said it was faulty gas lines. Others whispered about careless handling of lights. But before anyone could stop it, the fire spread through the wooden halls like a living thing. Gas lights burst, windows shattered from heat, and smoke rolled out into the night sky. Guests and staff scrambled to escape as the structure was consumed. By the time the first light of dawn reached the cliffs, the Cliff House was gone, reduced to embers and blackened beams. For Sutro, it was devastation, years of vision and effort lost in a single night. Yet even as smoke still rose from the ruins, he made a decision that would shape the next chapter. He would rebuild, and this time, it would be monumental. From that determination came the Cliff House of 1896, a masterpiece of ambition that seemed to defy the elements. Rising 7 stories high, the new building was a Victorian fantasy rendered in wood and glass, adorned with turrets, towers, and sweeping verandas. It stood like a chateau on the edge of the world, its pointed spires cutting into the fog. This was not simply a restaurant, it was a statement. Inside, ballrooms shimmered with chandeliers, and grand dining rooms hosted society's elite. The Cliff House became a theater of life, where elegance and danger coexisted in every gust that rattled its ornate windows. Visitors described it as a place of wonder, a castle above the sea, but to those who worked there, the complexity of the structure hinted at its fragility. Every beam and corridor carried risk. Then came 1907. The grandeur that had dazzled the city for a decade vanished overnight in another inferno. Flames once again tore through the wooden walls, devouring everything in their path. Witnesses reported the fire spreading faster than anyone could react, the towers glowing against the black sky like candles in a storm. Firefighters fought desperately, but the scale of the blaze made it impossible to control. By morning, the chateau had collapsed into itself. Charred remains jutted from the cliff like the bones of a fallen creature. The city mourned. The Cliff House was more than a building. It was part of San Francisco's soul. To see it burn again was to feel the fragility of human ambition against the raw persistence of nature. Still, the story did not end there. From the ashes rose a third incarnation, one that carried lessons learned from the past. In 1909, a new cliff house stood where its predecessors had fallen, stripped of ornament but rich in resilience. The design was neoclassical, solid, symmetrical, and deliberate. The whimsical turrets and fragile wooden towers were gone, replaced by reinforced concrete, brick, and steel. This time, the goal was not only beauty, but also endurance. The columns and clean lines spoke of permanence, a quiet defiance of the sea's relentless assault. It was a different kind of grandeur, less romantic, more timeless. Inside, the spirit of the Cliff House lived on. Guests still dined with the roar of the Pacific beneath them, still watched the sun sink into the horizon, and still felt the same mix of awe and unease that had drawn visitors for decades. Yet now there was a sense of calm strength to the place. The architecture no longer flirted with danger. It acknowledged it and stood firm against it. Over the following years, the building evolved with each generation. New dining rooms opened, terraces expanded, and reinforcements were added to withstand the salt air and coastal winds. Each restoration carried echoes of the past, the modest beginnings of 1863, the fires that had twice erased beauty, and the resolve that refused to let the story end. The Cliff House became more than a restaurant. It became a monument to endurance, a reminder that even when destruction comes, something lasting can emerge. Standing there today, overlooking the same restless waters, one can almost feel the layers of history beneath its foundations, the laughter of guests long gone, the heat of flames that once devoured its walls, and the unyielding determination that rebuilt it time and again. It's as if the cliffs themselves have absorbed those memories, holding them in the sound of the surf. Every wave that crashes below seems to echo that story of loss and rebirth. The Cliff House, in all its incarnations, embodies the strange pull of the Pacific coast, the beauty that invites, the danger that tests, and the resilience that defines those who face it. What began as a modest seaside retreat became a saga of fire, ambition, and endurance, etched into the city's memory. Even now, as fog rolls over the cliffs and the sea pounds the rocks below, the spirit of the cliff house endures, a symbol of how something built on the edge can keep standing, no matter how many times the ocean tries to claim it. The cliff house's story continued to evolve throughout the early 20th century, becoming inseparable from the identity of San Francisco itself. It was more than a building perched on jagged cliffs. It became a symbol, appearing in postcards, travel guides, and novels. Artists painted it, photographers captured it, and writers wove it into stories that carried the city's image far beyond its shoreline. The location itself, dramatic and unyielding, became a stage for human activity, drawing both high society and ordinary visitors who sought the thrill of standing at the edge of the Pacific. Over the decades, the Cliff House adapted to changing cultural currents. At times, a hotel component was added to accommodate overnight guests, offering an intimate glimpse of life on the cliffs. Dinners, dances, and cultural events became routine, turning the site into more than a restaurant. It became a social landmark, a place where scenic spectacle and human ambition intersected. Even during periods when the cuisine was not remarkable, visitors were drawn by the sheer magnetism of the cliffs and the promise of dramatic views, proving that the allure of the place extended beyond taste or luxury. Its financial survival depended less on the quality of its offerings and more on the romance and danger embedded in its location. Ownership changed hands multiple times, yet each steward maintained the building's aura, ensuring it remained relevant in a city constantly in motion. By the 1970s, recognition of the Cliff House's historical and cultural significance led city planners and preservationists to consider the long-term future of the site. The National Park Service intervened, acquiring the property to ensure its preservation within the Golden Gate National Recreation Area. Federal oversight introduced a framework of maintenance and protection, prioritizing longevity and safety alongside continued public access. Restoration efforts addressed structural deterioration caused by decades of exposure to wind, salt spray, and shifting geology, and sought to stabilize the cliffs themselves to prevent catastrophic failures. The NPS stewardship balanced the need to preserve history with practical measures to maintain the site's usability. Through this period, the Cliff House remained open as a restaurant and tourist attraction, allowing generations of visitors to experience the same dramatic vistas that had enthralled people for more than a century. The challenge of preserving a building in constant tension with the sea underscored the fragility of human constructions when placed against nature's relentless forces. In the 21st century, the pressures intensified. Rising maintenance costs combined with evolving tourism patterns, environmental concerns, and the inherent instability of the cliffside location to challenge the sustainability of continued commercial operations. The cliff itself is subject to erosion, rockfall, and subtle geological shifts, creating ongoing risk for any structure built on its edge. Then, in 2020, the global pandemic delivered a final blow to operations. The restaurant and hotel closed indefinitely as the hospitality industry faced unprecedented disruption. While the NPS retained ownership, the commercial business ceased, leaving the building silent after decades of activity. Where once laughter, conversation, and the clink of dishes echoed across terraces, Now only the wind and the roar of the Pacific filled the void. Though proposals and concepts for revival have been considered, no full reopening has occurred, leaving the Cliff House suspended in a state of quiet anticipation. This silence only amplified the legends surrounding the building. For a structure with such a storied past, myths and ghost stories inevitably emerged. Tales circulate of apparitions wandering the terraces at night, ghostly diners who vanish as quickly as they appear, and flickering lights during storms that suggest something beyond the physical realm. The building's history of fire and destruction, combined with its precarious location and grand architectural statements, has fueled imaginations for generations. These stories persist in local lore, passed from one visitor to the next, layering mystery over reality. The cultural fascination extends into fiction and media. The novel, The Cliff House Strangler, situates a chilling narrative in the property's environs, featuring a lawyer navigating a web of crime and supernatural undertones, drawing heavily from the site's eerie atmosphere. Even when geographical accuracy is absent, as in the true crime podcast set in Laguna Beach, the name Cliff House evokes an immediate sense of suspense and foreboding, demonstrating the broader psychological impact of the site. The building, through these stories, becomes larger than its physical footprint, entering the collective consciousness as a place of both beauty and unease, history and haunting. Throughout these decades, the Cliff House has embodied a continuous tension between human ambition and nature's immutable forces. From its earliest incarnation to its Victorian chateau rebirth, and later to the neoclassical design that sought endurance over spectacle, the building has stood repeatedly against fire, storms, and time. Each reconstruction revealed lessons learned from catastrophe. Materials were strengthened, foundations reinforced, and design simplified. Yet even with every precaution, the cliff itself remained an unpredictable partner. Visitors could sense that underlying risk with every glance over the edge, feeling the precariousness that had shaped the building's entire history. Its enduring presence, despite destruction and disaster, created an almost magnetic pull, compelling people to witness the intersection of beauty and danger firsthand. The Cliff House's legacy is as much about its social and cultural role as its architectural evolution. Across the 20th century, it hosted events that connected people across social classes, provided a space for artistic inspiration, and became a backdrop for stories both real and imagined. Its terraces witnessed private conversations, public celebrations, and the ceaseless rhythm of the sea below. These experiences created a collective memory, a shared sense of place that persists even in its silence. Visitors, whether in person or through cultural representation, interact with the Cliff House as more than a building. It is a living record of human resilience, risk, and imagination. Even today, standing before the cliffs, one can sense the weight of history pressing against the present. The structure is at once fragile and monumental, echoing its origins, its trials, and its rebirths. The waves below continue their relentless assault on the rocks. The fog drifts across the terraces, and the wind sweeps the cliff's edge with the same force it always has. Yet the Cliff House endures, a silent witness to more than a century of human life intertwined with natural fury. Its past, marked by fire, reconstruction, societal prominence, and myth, remains alive in the imagination of those who remember it, those who dream about it, and those who seek its story in art, literature, and legend. It is a place where history is tangible, danger is palpable, and mystery lingers, waiting for each visitor to confront the cliffside secrets for themselves. The building's presence is a testament to persistence, a reminder that even in the face of destruction, something lasting can emerge. Each fire, each storm, each change in ownership has added layers to its identity, forging a site that is both historical artifact and living legend. From early visitors who climbed the cliffs to catch the first glimpses of the Pacific, to modern tourists pausing in awe at the empty terraces, the Cliff House continues to inspire fascination and a sense of trepidation. It is a place where the past presses in on the present, where stories of fire and resilience mingle with whispered tales of the unexplained. Every brick, every column, every terrace seems charged with memory, holding the echoes of lives, laughter, fear, and ambition against the backdrop of the eternal sea. Through these many transformations, the Cliff House has maintained a presence that is difficult to match, a symbol of San Francisco itself, perched at the edge of civilization and the relentless ocean. Its story of destruction and rebirth, cultural significance, federal preservation, modern challenges, and haunting myths combines into a narrative that is as compelling as it is chilling. Standing on its terraces, one feels the weight of history, the tension of human endeavor against nature, and the lingering possibility that some of the cliff's secrets will never be fully revealed. The Cliff House endures, both a monument and a mystery, captivating imagination while standing as a silent witness to the drama of life on the edge. If you found this exploration enlightening, please give this video a thumbs up and share it with someone who loves San Francisco history. Drop a comment below with your thoughts, questions, or personal experiences of the Cliff House over the years. And if you want us to dive into other storied landmarks and peel back how their legends grew, hit subscribe and turn on notifications so you will see every new deep dive.